please. Your attention. We're about to begin the ceremony with your kind attention and silence. We will begin the program with the singing of God Bless America and then the Lord's Prayer.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. Glory to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, now and ever, and unto ages of ages. Amen. Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy. Master, bless.
Christ our God, who from a multitude of 5 loaves and 2 fish, bless the food and drink of thy servants, for thou art holy, always, now and ever, and unto ages of ages.
Amen. Each forty days, O God.
Ministers to all of you, surprise me, come.
This is my wife, Ellen. This is my son.
Your attention, please. I have your attention. The order is somewhat out of place for several reasons, but now that I am sure that everyone has had their meal served or served themselves, often when trying to compose just the right words for an occasion and such a toast, one finds that the church has already wisely and eloquently provided us with all the necessary and perfect words and sentiments of the day. So in offering the first toast this afternoon, in thanks to God for all that Father Paul has done and meant to us, both in physical and spiritual terms, we turn to the words of the church we hear so often. So would everyone please rise, and with your favorite beverage in hand. We will sing, then we will drink, but please do not empty your glass completely. Grant, O Lord, a blessed and peaceful life, health, salvation, and prosperity in all worthy endeavors, unto thy servant, the celebrant Archpriest Paul. Grant him honor and length of days, so that he may continue to exhibit his love for you, Heavenly Father, through his abiding love for us, and protect and preserve him for many years. God grant you many years. God grant you many years. God grant you many, many, many years. To Father Paul.
Amen.
Okay, please have your seat again. And those of you who haven't finished, continue to eat.
Okay, I'm a kid. You're okay. Really?
Oh, no, you got one.
So she has it, but they don't have it. Okay. Here. I'll go over there. Let's go. I don't think so. No, you're fine. Okay, one more. Yeah, here. Oh, okay, here. Oh, just goes. Oh. Yeah, that's good. Then they get another picture. Sorry to show you.
Some people just start.
All right. Oh my God. I was ready. After Mary found out from my sister that she was carrying, I got tested. We hadn't even had kids yet. I found out I was a carrier. Oh, we had Joseph, that's right. I found out I was a carrier. And then Ellie got tested and she was a carrier. So now we were worried about it. But I have bad genes, bad variant mutation. Illinois has it, but it's a different mutation. Susanna genetically has both of our recessive genes, but she's not getting symptoms because her genes don't have it. So when they were just starting to test genetically, when Susanna go on, so they didn't realize the change in all of the but Susanna has both of our genes. So we never got to genetic testing. And that's, that's what I got. I want to call I don't know. No, you're okay. You put a lot of work in that. And when you're the planner, you can have staff. Yeah, that's right. If he wouldn't let me help this meeting, yeah, I have to. So let's see, there's a husband alone without the kids and the wife and the other one's taking him to the field.
He put Julius there.
Oh.
Yeah.
That even makes it worse. So they found a bar and have a happy hour. I like to be happy.
I want them to see John went out to get it, but
People drink what you have.
he said he went with the first store he went to. This is a sweet
I used to walk down to the corner store when I was here when I was little.
the one that's from Sean, right? Here's that super long, all right.
It's not even close to time. We're still going to do some dancing. That's right. No, we're going to have a little program tomorrow. And then we're going to go.
All right. It is now after 2 o'clock. Even louder? This way, yes. So it is time to begin a more formal part of the program, if we can have your attention. Your Eminence, Brother Clergy, Matushki, honored guests, family and friends. Where shall we begin? Well, both the Old Testament and the New Testament start with the words, in the beginning. So we start with Father Paul's beginning. His birth on July 2nd, 1922. 2 days before the United States celebrated its 146th birthday. And we ask, what sort of world did Father Paul enter in 1922? In the Soviet Union, officially formed that very year, Vladimir Lenin was still in power, and the Orthodox Church was headed by Saint Metropolitan Tikhon. In the United States, the Lincoln Memorial was dedicated by President Harding and Vice President Coolidge. The Metropolia was yet to be formed, never mind the OCA. And our church was headed by Metropolitan Platon under very difficult conditions. The Model T Ford was still in full production. Charles Lindbergh's epic transatlantic flight was still 5 years in the future, as was the New York Yankee Babe Ruth's historic 60 home run season. Alas, almost every time I talk with Father Paul, the subject does turn to baseball and his beloved Yankees. Alas, Father Paul, I have to tell you, in 1922's World Series, Ruth went 2 for 17 with no home runs, and your beloved Yankees lost 4 games to none to the New York Giants. Now in England, both the BBC, the British Broadcasting Company, and Centre Court at Wimbledon and the tennis tournament were initiated this 1922. As many of you know and realize, Wimbledon is in the midst of its tournament as we speak. And it therefore presents us the opportunity for an appropriate centennial birthday gift for Father Paul.
What is it?
You can open?
Yes, absolutely. It is a centennial towel of Wimbledon's Centre Court. The year 1922. Two centennials celebrated this very, very week. Now, our first speaker will be our beloved Archbishop Michael. It's customary that when a prelate comes to give an address, we all stand and sing Istola et Jesota, which means many years of Vladiko. Think about those words, because we really mean that. We hope to pray that Vladika will be blessed with many years. May he reach 100, leading us especially spiritually, with great wisdom, with great love. And may we return that love.
Amen.
Be seated. Before I thank you, Father, Father Paul, Matushka Mary, very Reverend Fathers, deacons, subdeacons, the entourage, members of the family, members of this parish, guests. I want to take this opportunity. Maybe you're introducing guests, are you? Okay, then I won't. Well, I will anyway. I just want to say that amongst us is a very important person, I think, in our church. Oftentimes we get criticized for what roles women play in the church, and we're blessed to have a woman who has given her life to Christ, leads a monastic community, is herself a theologian and speaker, and retreat giver and an advisor to women, and so many other things, some other Christofora. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you. Thank you for your leadership in the church. Before I get started, I just want to say that when I was waiting outside for my staff to bring me into church, I met Father Paul's doctor. And we got to talking. He was telling me that, Father Paul is turning 100 and he's retiring, and, he's letting go of his practice and he's going to start a new life. And I just said, you did a great job. Father Paul is 100. This is my point, though. Listen to this. He said, it really wasn't me. He said, Father Paul has his own secret. And now I have it, and I'm going to share it with you. Father Paul eats natural foods. He doesn't eat all those poison preservatives and all those other things. So that's right from the doctor's guidance. Where are you, doctor? Thank you so much.
He's a holistic doctor.
Pardon?
He's a holistic.
He's a holistic doctor, so you see. So is my doctor, just for the record. He's not here, though. As all of you know, I teach at a seminary, and because I drive 2.5 hours to get there all the time, I teach 3-hour blocks at a time. So I'm used to speaking long. So to prevent that from happening, I've written a text that is exactly 1 page. Because there are other speakers, and we want to hear Father Paul. So, dear Father Paul, on this festive and joyous occasion, your 100th birthday and your Diamond Jubilee year of ordination to the Holy Priesthood, I am pleased to extend my personal congratulations and warm best wishes on behalf of the diocese and his beatitude in the Holy Synod. It's in the spirit of deep thanksgiving to Almighty God that we join together, the clergy and faithful gathered here in Trenton, to mark this milestone, as well as all those who love you and respect you across the world who can't be here for one reason or another, to acknowledge our many years of dedicated service to Christ and to his church. Our Lord tells us, whoever would be great among you must be your servant, and whoever would be first among you must be the slave of all. For 3/4 of a century, you have served the faithful of parishes to which you are assigned, and they share our highest sentiments and our personal wishes for everything best, both in life and in faith, for you and your lifelong partner in marriage and in ministry, Matushka Mary. The words of Solomon the Wise are appropriate on this happy centennial of your birth. A head lightened with age is a crown of glory. It is gained in a righteous life. That's Proverbs 16:31. And so we pray, Father, that the Lord will grant you future years of ministry with bountifully blessed with secure peace and abiding joy, gained from your commitment to God and to the care of souls. And we ask that He continue to grant you and Matushka Mary and all your family prosperous and peaceful life, good health and salvation, visitation, and hastening in all things, and that He will protect and preserve you all for many blessed years. God bless you. Svala je s praznikom.
In checking with our OCA archivist, Alex Liberovsky, we find that in the history of the OCA and the Metropolia, there was only one other priest who reached the centennial milestone. His name was Father Prokopy Povernitsyn, but he anglicized his name to Father Prokopy Powers. He reposed at St. Cosmos and Damian home in 1986 at the age of 100. Now, I must apologize to many of you, as I know I have used this anecdotal story before. 10, 20, 25 years ago? Well, let's just say a number of years ago, with the rebirth of the Orthodox Church in Russia, our OCA created a sister parish program. And our chapel community in Princeton was paired up with a parish in Kudinovo, Russia, about 25 miles outside of Moscow. I had the good fortune to visit that parish a few times and learn from its pastor, Father Viktor Dorofeyev, about one of his predecessors, one Father Jeremiah Afanasiev. This devout clergyman of the 17th and 18th century served that parish of the Protection of the Theotokos for 97 years, dying, as we say, with his stole on at the age of 117. He is mentioned in several pieces of Russian literature. There is a moral to this story. Father Paul, that towel that we just gave you, please don't throw the towel in. Now, with the help of Nina and Paula, we're going to have, no, I take that back. A century, 18 presidents, 8 Supreme Court Chief Justices, 8 metropolitans, 12 Sabors, and 20 All-American Councils. The century is certainly a monumental event. Let us also keep in mind the extraordinary longevity of Father Paul's tenure in one parish, St. Vladimir's in Trenton, where he began his pastorate in 1949. Retiring in 2002, and several times thereafter as pastor emeritus, Father Paul has been a mainstay of this community for 73 years. We often joke that Father Paul failed retirement. And more than that, Father Paul would regularly drive from Trenton north to St. Vladimir's Seminary, where he taught a generation of seminarians in liturgics. And then he served for many, many years on the St. Vladimir's Board of Trustees. So it is altogether fitting that our next speaker is the present Dean of St. Vladimir's, Father Chad Hatfield, to expand on this. Father Chad.
Your Eminence, our honored guests, Father Paul and Matryoshka Mary, their family, fathers and Matryoshka brothers and sisters in Christ, glory to Jesus Christ. Glory forever. It is really an extreme honor and a great blessing to be asked to say a few words once again in this hall as we're honoring Father Paul. On previous occasions when I've been here, one of the things that has always struck me as a priest is watching Father Paul in the altar. Today I was struck once again with the walker as he moved gracefully to do the proper venerations as he entered the holy place. And I thought to myself, well, dear God, if I ever make it to 100, I hope I can do that as well. That speaks volumes of how we know Father Paul, whose life is so centered on exactly that, being a priest with great respect for what a priest primarily does. If we look back over this long pastorate here of Father Paul's, I couldn't imagine how many baptisms have been served, how many weddings have been served, how many funerals, how many times he's been there in the hospital and administered Holy Unction. How do we count? In some sense, probably only the angels know. Because he understands in his heart that that's what he was ordained for. 75 years ago. He wasn't ordained to do all the other activities that priests do. He knows that a priest is basically not an activities director on a cruise ship. And there are a lot of parish priests who think that really is their job. But it's not. And one of the things that's important here as well is we, of course, are celebrating not only the 100th birthday, the 75th anniversary of ordination of the priesthood, but 75 years of marriage. And that in itself, again, is just stunningly remarkable. And you all are very fortunate to have the bishop that you have, the Archbishop. He spoke beautifully this morning, reminding again all of us, although Father Paul is the one who knelt at the altar 75 years ago, received apostolic laying on of hands and a charge from the ordaining bishop, he couldn't do it without Matryoshka Mary and their family. So a big round of applause for this pillar of support. A few years back, I was asked to speak at Princeton University on an occasion when they were honoring the late Patriarch of Ethiopia, Patriarch Paulus, who was one of our graduates. After I said yes and hung up the phone, I thought, now what the heck am I going to say about the Patriarch of Ethiopia who graduated in 1962? So I called Paul Meindorf to get a little bit of coaching on where to look. He was no help. So I called Father John Erickson. And Father John said, I really can't help you, but what you need to do is get into the legacy system. And I thought to myself, what the heck is a legacy system? So I had to go ask my secretary, Anne, what's a legacy system? And Anne has a beautiful accent. She grew up in Little Italy in the Bronx, and she says, Father, she says, it's something we don't use no more. So I went down to the tech department, and I said, somehow or another, I need to get access to the so-called legacy system. And both guys looked at me and said, man, Father, that's a challenge. Well, they actually did it. You know, at one point, our tech department was manned by a Greek, a Ukrainian, and a Romanian. I said to them once, I expect to see a sign posted on the door any day now that says, no Turks need apply. If you really want to know who the masters of the tech world are, those three countries produce them. So they actually got into the legacy system. Well, it was great. I figured out one of the problems is that they had his name spelled wrong 3 times. So lo and behold, I was asked to say a few words about Father Paul, his time at St. Vladimir's. So I thought, uh-oh, I got to go back to the legacy system. So I actually went out and I spoke to Ann, and I said, I think I've got to get into the legacy system again for Father Paul. And Ann gave a great response. Oh, Father, you don't need no legacy system for Father Paul. He is the legacy. Well, Father Paul, indeed you are a legacy. You're certainly a legacy at your alma mater and in the wider church that you served. And you know certain things about what it means to be a priest, and you've been willing to pass that on to several generations. You learned as a student in your formation what it takes. And that drew you back, after pastoral experience, to one of your passions, which is liturgical theology, where you were made an instructor in 1955. By the way, I was 2 years old. From there, you put more education behind you, eventually earning that second master's degree at Columbia. So I did dig around a little bit because I wanted to find out a little bit more about Father Paul's interest in liturgical theology, and guess what I found? An old book. This is the dedication of the new property that was acquired in 1962 in St. Vladimir's, for which, again, you were a key part of that process. Your photograph is here. You looked younger in those days, by the way. And I just want to read the little sections that's in there. It says, born July 2nd, 1922 in Oliphant, Pennsylvania, graduated from Columbia College in 1945, from St. Vladimir's Seminary in 1945, did graduate work at St. Vladimir's and Columbia, and is presently candidate for the MA degree. Ordained a priest in 1947, helped organize the Orthodox Christian Student Fellowship at the University of Pennsylvania. First president of St. Vladimir's Alumni Association. Served as a member of the Liturgical Commission of the 1959 All-American Sobor of the Russian Church. Member, 1963 Sobor Planning Committee. Member, Standing Liturgical Translations Committee. Pastor, St. Vladimir's Church, Trenton, New Jersey. And was appointed lecturer, as I said, in 1955. That centers upon where the heart of this priest lies. It is, as I've said now, 2 times at the altar, for that's what he was ordained for. But he has another passion, and it hasn't been mentioned yet, and that's gardening. We know now their secret for longevity is that organic food, right?
Totally.
One of the things that Father Paul understands as a gardener, who's also a priest, is that the very word seminary has its same root origins in gardening. Because it is seminal. It is a place like a greenhouse or a garden where you plant the seed and you grow a good, strong crop so that other people may be partakers of the fruits of the seeds that you have planted. Well, what better legacy can there be for someone who for 75 years has faithfully served his Lord as a priest, other than when he stands before the gates at St. Peter, which we hope will be a while yet. I mean, who knows, we could have a bicentennial celebration someday. When you're asked the question by St. Peter, Archpriest Paul, what good did you do for my church? You can say, I helped form generations and generations of priests who serve in the name of Christ. If that doesn't get your ticket in, I don't know what will.
We will now have an interruption of sorts, at least from speakers, and we'll turn to a slideshow, which has been on for some time, but I'm not sure that everyone had the opportunity to watch it in entirety. So with the help of Nina and Paula, Nina's over there, okay, she is going to run this. We ask that you find a position where you can see it well, and pay close attention, and appreciate it. So, now for the slideshow. The encapsulation of the century, so beautifully done. Thank you, Nina. Thank you, Paula. Old age is often equated with wisdom. Father Paul is strong evidence of that. However, he possessed great wisdom very early in life. In his perfect choice of a mate, our dear Matushka Mary. If there is any term which comes close to describing the Shafrons, I would call it gracious hospitality. Father Paul in the altar, where he would always be sure to assign more parts than the Ustav called for to visiting priests, be they seniors, Florovsky, Turkevich, Shako, Alenik, among others, or green rookies right out of seminary. That same welcoming spirit of hospitality was always shown by Matushka Mary in the home and at the table, be it to clergy, parishioners, visiting students from Princeton before our chapel was formed. This included at least one illustrious Princeton postdoc in the early 60s, who was known back then as Timothy Weir, who would come down here on Sundays. I understand he was just before my time with an umbrella and a formal hat in hand. He's now known as Metropolitan Kallistos of Dioclea and Oxford. So when Father Chad mentioned that Father Paul's influence extended worldwide, indeed that is so. The Shafrons' graciousness extended in another way. Whenever they visit, they are laden with gifts from the garden, the products of Father Paul's legendary green thumb, or sometimes with rare, pricey, and fragrant mushrooms that appear magically from abroad. Consequently, permit me to offer a second toast to Father Paul, and especially to Matushka Mary, in thanks for their gracious hospitality and in honor of their upcoming 75th anniversary this November. This is why I said don't finish your beverage. Father Paul, and especially Matushka Mary, many years. I loved Father Chad's mention of the term legacy, for indeed our next person is a shining example of that legacy. The present pastor of St. Vladimir's, Father Volodymyr, who has shown true love, true honor, true respect for Father Paul's wisdom. I credit Father Volodymyr for the Renaissance, the rebirth of this very parish. And we congratulate him on all the splendid, splendid work that he has done.
Father Volodymyr.
Your Eminence, dear clergy, guests, friends, parishioner, and all who are here. Glory to Jesus Christ.
Glory forever.
It is nice, of course, to see you all here to celebrate this special occasion. This is the unique celebration for Father Paul 100 years birthday and 75 priesthood ordination. And when I was preparing my speech for today, I asked somebody what they thought I should talk about Father Paul 100 years birthday. Talk about his priest forever, somebody told me. Then when I asked Matushka, my Matushka, what I should say, she said, tell them that he's a happy priest. There you have it. But what marks this priesthood, I think, is more than just happiness. It is something wider and deeper. It's joy. Knowing Father Paul, working with him all these years, I have seen it and I agree. Joy brings us closer to God, closer to His Holy Spirit, and joyful priest magnifies that by bringing with that joy a sense of holy, a sense of God's grace at work. Joy in the priesthood comes from responsibility, committed prayer life, a sense of sacrifice, and something else. That something else is love. Being a priest means love people and your faith so much that you want to bring Christ to them. And how blessed we have been because Father Paul has been here to share that love with us. And we have been a part of it. And he has been a part of us. As you celebrate the special day today, Father Paul, let me take this opportunity to thank God, of course, for the far He has led you. We thank Him for opening the door of service to you and for making it possible for you to serve for many people. Father Paul, on behalf of my family, of course, and on behalf of all our St. Vladimir parish, we greet and congratulate you on this significant day, your 100 years birthday. May your good Lord give you physical and spiritual strength, good health, and inexhaustible joy in Christ, Savior, Jesus Christ, and His grace. And happy, happy birthday, many, many more. Thank you. I just want to let you know, we do have Vesper at 5 p.m. Bishop Michael will stay, so everybody welcome, of course.
And now a public service announcement about the program booklet. We want every family to take it home to peruse at your leisure. The booklet is chock full of information. Take time to fully digest all the information that is here. There's a lot of biographical information about Father Paul and his accomplishments. But you will also see important developments in the life of this parish, especially for newcomers. There's a history lesson on changes here, including several expansions of the church and its beautiful iconography, the construction of this hall, etc. All a testament to the leadership, vision, energy, and pastoral love of Father Paul and many hardworking, dedicated parishioners. There was a very nice short piece written by Father Paul reflecting on his priestly life. There are links to other articles, as well as a link to videos which are very funny and interesting to watch. And on the back is an original artwork by Father Paul's very dear friend, Father Thomas Edwards. Please do not throw any of these away. It took a lot of time and expense to put the booklet together. There is a basket on your way out if you don't want to take more than one home. We will make them available at the back of the church to share with friends and family who could not be here today. Now, I'm not sure, is the cake ready?
Yeah. Nina, can you check on the cake, please? Bring out the cake for Gary. And 100 candles.
I think most of the introductions have been taken care of, with the exception at the head table of my dear friend and a longtime friend of this parish, and Father Paul as well. Father Michael, would you like to say a few words?
Glory to Jesus Christ.
Glory forever.
It's wonderful to be here. I always wanted to be at a 100th birthday party. And this is my first one. All the other nonagenarians let me down. But you, Father Paul, you didn't let me down.
That's right.
So it's wonderful to be here. You know, in Polish, instead of saying many years or mnohe lata, they say 100 lat. 100 lat, 100 lat, 100 lat. That's how they wish many years. But now I don't know where we go from here. I think 200 lat maybe is right. 200 years. 200 lat. It doesn't quite roll off the tongue the same way, but that's the next milestone. In all seriousness, we celebrate this weekend, this holiday weekend, the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And in that declaration, we're told that God endowed all of us with life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I think if we take Father Paul and his life as a lens to look at those things, we understand that there is no life apart from God and His church and service to His church. There is no liberty, there is no freedom without the Holy Spirit and the freedom of morality. Sin is addictive. It ties us to the world of passions. But to be truly free is to do the will of God, something that Father Paul has always strived to do in his life. And the pursuit of happiness. I'm not sure that the framers of the Declaration of Independence got it quite right. Happiness is fleeting, and it can be tied to the world of worldly pleasures. But I think, though, is a gift of the Holy Spirit, is joy. Father Volodymyr mentioned this, joy. And that's what I think of when I think of Father Paul and serving with him for so many years as a deacon and now as a priest. Great joy. And it's in that joy that I greet all of you. Glory to Jesus Christ.
Glory to God.
I know there are a couple people yet to be introduced. Among them I see at least two Matushki who have come. First of all, Matushka Faith Kuharski. I know Father Sergei, a lifelong friend of Father Paul, would love to be here, but is unable. But Matushka Faith is with us. And I was mentioning to someone that Father Paul and I first met as a freshman at Princeton when we would come down here, hitchhike here, and was at that time that Father Paul became my father confessor 60 years ago. But my Matushka goes back with Father Paul as her spiritual confessor even longer than that. So, my Matushka Tamara, a hand wave at least, if not a stand up. Are there any others that I am missing? Any other? Vladika reminds me, especially after the wonderful words of Father Michael, that yes, there is another Matushka here. Matushka Leslie. Matushka? Yeah. Matushka Leslie. Where are you? Stand up. There we are. I wonder if you can see you. Let's feel.
Cousin Matushka Deborah Balanik.
Ah, okay. People reminded me, and likewise, Matushka Deborah Balanik. Please stand. Thank you for that help. That's a great crowd. I can easily miss any others.
I think we're going to have a birthday cake.
Let me see.
I think we're going to have a birthday cake.
The birthday cake is about ready.
We'll sing happy birthday.
And then we're not going to sing Doge Yolanda. We're going to sing happy birthday. I hope it's on its way.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to all. Happy birthday to you.
Father, Holy to you. I think I forgot. Oh, she's with the children asleep. And she's working.
Happy birthday, Father.
Well, I love to do Matushka Oksana because I know that Matushka Oksana is as much the Father Volodymyr as Matushka Mary is the Father Paul.
She's at work.
Matushka Mary. She's at work, yeah. Okay. I guess it is time for what is called the open mic. And by that, we do not mean karaoke. But anyone who would like to take a turn now to say some words. Oh, I'm sorry. Now, if you would pay your full attention to our honoree, and I think a good standing salvation that they standing in Belgrade Ghetto. One more time. Our beloved centenarian, Father Paul.
Mommy doesn't care. But she doesn't care too much. Well, she has extra clothes. And also, many other things that we always make.
Bringing the cake around.
We're used to it. Yeah, we're also used to it.
Yeah.
Right, Mom?
What's your favorite kind of cake?
How about chocolate and strawberry? No? Just chocolate.
Right, Mommy? It's his favorite.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Let somebody hold the mic and then.
The doctor has it.
Can you be heard? Speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can we see you?
When I was told that there would be a birthday party for me at the church, I was hoping it would be nothing elaborate.
You hope for it.
I'm a kind of a simple man. I don't like big hoorays or slava-slovi, as they say. I thought we'll just have a simple family birthday party. And I got worried with Father and I said, of course, he had big ideas. And but too much anyway. I did not anticipate such a turnout as I see today. It's not just a birthday party. It's a Torrestwall, a festival, a wonderful gift to see Vladika, priests, people that I haven't seen for a long time. And they've come from many places. Far away, Georgia, Republican. We have Georgians here today. We have from Africa, Eritrean family here, Hispanics here. My relatives have come from California, from New York State, and different parts of the country. A big gathering here today, so forth. And today's service, of course, in church, brought tears into my eyes. The spirit in the church was so sacred,
wholly beautiful. The beauty of our Orthodox liturgical life is so, so rich. It just touches the heart and so forth. Anyway, to begin with, my family doctor, Dr. Allen, who's here today, thank God, with his wife. He was my primary doctor for many years. And when I came to the office at the end of the day, it was not for 15 or 20 minutes. It was at least an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours. Because we did not just talk about medicine, we talked about religion also. But there was one time that Dr. Ong said to me in passing, he said, after examining me, he says, Father Paul, you're going to live 100 years. Sure. That didn't faze me at that time because I just passing words or so forth. But today, I say he was a prophet. By the way, some people were saying here, I'm here today, but I'm healthy because I eat good foods, you see. My family is always telling me I eat junk food. I do eat a lot of junk food, I eat good food, so anyway, thank God I'm here today. But first of all, let us understand that life is a sacred gift from God. A gift that's supposed to be precious, to be used in a holy way, not to be wasted, to know and love God, to serve Him, and keep His commandments. In the prayer to the Holy Spirit, we say, O Heavenly King, Comforter, Spirit of truth, Spirit of blessings, and Giver of life, come and abide in us. Save our souls with good love. St. James, in his epistle, first chapter, says, every good gift, every holy gift is from above, coming from the Father of lights. And in the Psalms, so many Psalms have the phrase, oh, give thanks to the Lord for His mercy and His good forever. So, we always have to be thankful for all of our blessings. There is a song that you hear sometimes. Count your blessings one by one. Count your blessings one by one. See then what the Lord has done. So, we all have blessings. We have to count them one by one. Well, first, I'm glad and happy for the blessing of long life. The century life is a big gift from God. I'm grateful that I had good parents, humble parents, poor parents, but they raised me properly to be a good Christian. Then I am grateful, of course, to have this wonderful wife, Mary Shepard. Wonderful girl. I'm grateful. And God gave us 3 wonderful children, 3 daughters. Paula, Nina, and of course, sadly, our dearest, youngest daughter was taken away from us because of her difficult illness of cancer. Died at an early age, leaving her husband and 2 sweet little girls. That was traumatic for us. It was very difficult to deal with, but we never forgot that. We're also glad, of course, as they say, when you have daughters, they bring in son-in-laws. So we have 2 son-in-laws, Ludwig Kurta and David Griffiths, are here today with us. All of these. children and son-in-laws, and even their children and grandchildren, are big helpers for us. We need help. Machi Kamiri and I, we need help. All the help we can get. All the help.
Only reason.
And so forth. So we're grateful for that. I'm also thankful that I was able to have an education. Even though my father had no money, I went to school on borrowed monies, finished it faithfully, and my ordination to become a priest, which I always thought. So I'm also grateful that I'm able to still serve in the church with Father Bogdamir, who is a big helper, who receives me very well, treats me like a father. Well, I start, when you're old in 100 years, of course, you cover a lot of history. The world has changed so much since I was born. So many things. Life was completely different when I was a youngster. Simple life. We didn't have all these electronic devices that we have today, all these conveniences that we enjoy today, and so forth. You know, we have so much electrical devices today. When I was a youngster, I remember some homes did not have electrical lights. They burned kerosene lamps to get light in their homes. Women didn't have machines to wash clothes or bake, so forth. Everything had to be done by hand. It was hard work, everybody. There were no airplanes at that time, or big trailer trucks, and so forth. There were a lot of horses with wagons still at that time, railroads, and so forth, so on. It was a different world and a different culture at that time. It was a religious culture. Today we have a secular culture, a difficult culture. But my memories are still good, I remember. It's important, by the way, to have good memories. Dr. Ong told me, it's obvious, according to the Chinese tradition, that the best part of your body is from the head to the waist. Below that's not important. Anyway, so I still have good memory, good mind, thank God for that. And I go back to my early childhood days. Somehow I still remember when my father, was 2 years old maybe, and we were a religious church family. We were always in church, the whole family. And my father was carrying me to church in his arms, so I remember that. But I also remember a strange thing. I was maybe 2 or 3 years old, so in the summertime, I ran out of the house naked, no clothes. I was running down the street, crossed the bridge over the river, and there was a railroad track there with a locomotive was standing there, a big thing there. And my mother was following me and screaming like, and she's sort of afraid I'm going to go into that train and get killed, so forth. But anyway, she rescued me, brought me down. That's a memory of mine. But anyway, as I reached the age of 5, it was time to go to school. We didn't have kindergarten in those days. It was first grade, you started. So I was only 5 years old, and my mother took me to school. And this first grade teacher was a small, kind of old lady with pitch glasses, you know, and her hair was tied up on top of her head like a bird's nest. And she scared me. I was scared. I began to cry. I said, no, Mom, I can't stand so. So we went home, and the next day my mother took me to another school where there was a young teacher. And there I stayed there. So time went on, year after year going to school. But things that I remember in those days, we're speaking about history. Some bad things were happening, of course. There was World War I. I was not alive yet, but my father and my uncle spoke about the horrors of World War I, which was followed by that Spanish flu epidemic. So many people were dying that they didn't have enough caskets to bury people in those days. Then that was followed after by the Great Depression, which lasted about 25 years, through the 20s and the 30s. When people had no work, no employment, banks went bankrupt, people lost all their savings in the banks, and people were who lost money on the stock market were jumping on the windows, committing suicide and so forth. Difficult times. Everybody was poor. It was hard to get a job. Today, of course, they start begging people to work. People don't want to work today. In those days, you got on your knees and asked to get a job, so forth. But in those days, everything was poor and cheap. And you know what the wages were in those days? My mother and my sisters worked for $1 a day. $5, $6 a week. My first job was also $1 a day. $1 a day. Boy, oh boy. So anyway, as I was maturing in school, I had to decide, what am I going to do when I graduate from high school? Some fellows were talking about they're going to go here, going to do this and so forth. And then I didn't give much thought. But I remember as a youngster, I always liked to play the part of a priest. You see, we had a group of boys and girls in my neighborhood. We had a big field, and I made a little tin can with wires and put wood in it, made a fire. It was my censer, and I was a priest. And every time we found a dead cat or a dead bird, we had a funeral service. I was a priest. Sometimes we had a small wedding. But I grew up in the church. We had church school where I was taught my religion, singing and so forth. I served at an altar service, a boy, sang in the choir and so forth, reader. And then one time I was just about 10, 11, 12 years old, and I was assigned to read the epistle lesson in the center of the church. In those days, it was not English, it was Church Slavonic. Language of St. Cyril and Paul, and St. Cyril and Methodius. And I got stage struck. My knees were shaking so hardly in the center of the church reading that epistle lesson, and I thought I was going to drop the book and fall down myself, but somehow I survived. And time went on, and then after graduating high school, I decided myself, I'm going to study for the priesthood. I went to my parish priest at that time, and I spoke to him about it. He says, Paul, he says, that's a high calling. Congratulations. And he gave me instructions what to do and so forth. And to get ready for school, I had to earn some money. So I went, the only place I could get a job was to work in the Catskill Mountain hotels there. And did all kind of work there. $1 a day, but plus the food. But they're eating in I used to eat pretty well then. And the chef or the cook in that hotel where I was eating, he saw me eating a big meal. And he came to me, looking at me, showing, "You're eating too much." It scared me anyway. But I was there for 2 months, and of course $1 a day came out to $60, and I came home with $60. With that $60, I bought a suit, a coat, and a hat for $60. So I went to the seminary. And then I arrived, took a bus, midnight bus from Scranton, Pennsylvania, Greyhound bus, and rode all night, and arrived in New York City at the Greyhound station, 39th and 8th Avenue Streets, 6 o'clock in the morning. And when I went to breakfast, I saw a man sweeping the streets with a big broom. I asked him for where the seminary is located. He told me where to go to. And then I stopped at a small restaurant there with one counter there. And I had a glass of orange juice, 2 fried eggs, toast, and coffee, 25 cents. And anyway, so I came to St. Vladimir's Marian there. The program in those days, it was St. Vladimir's Seminary at that time, was just beginning, it was the second year. It had a difficult program of academics and seminary. We tied with Columbia University. You had to study in the morning at Columbia University for your degrees and at the seminary in the afternoons. Very, very difficult. You got very little sleep because there was so much to read, so many piles of books to read and so forth. You got very little sleep. But the thing again is, with the depression and everybody being poor, and even one of the boys had to work at nights, lost sleep because he had no money at all from his father died, just his mother was a widow. But it was one day morning we were going to the subway to go to Columbia University, and 1 and 2 everybody said, we're broke, I don't have a nickel. The subway was 5 cents, and today I think it's $3 a ride. But it seemed that everybody was broke. The whole group of us, nobody had a nickel. So we had to ask the dean of the seminary to give us money to ride the subway. That's how things were those days. Anyway, I was able to complete 5 years of study at Columbia and St. Vladimir's Seminary. And then it was time, of course, to think about getting married, finding a girl. And I was at home, and my mother was saying, better get out there, look for a girl, because you won't find a girl in the house here. And a good priest of mine, a good friend in Warren, Ohio, wrote to me, he says, come out here, Father, that is poem. He says, we have some nice girls here, you'll meet one. And sure enough, I went out there. I hitchhiked, by the way. I hitchhiked in those days. I had money. Crossed Pennsylvania, got to Ohio and so forth. And there, at Father Michael's house, there was a choir rehearsal. And there I saw that ugly girl, Mary Obertil. And I was attracted to her. We got acquainted. And a few months later, we were married. That was November 1947. And then in December of that same year, I was ordained as a priest. That year, of course, was a very harsh winter. On that day that I was to be ordained, there was what we call the blizzard of 1947. They show it on TV sometimes. New York was paralyzed with snow, it was knee deep, and they didn't have, in those days, tractors or trucks to clean streets. Snow laid on the street for the long time. How people got to the cathedral for my ordination, I don't know to this day. The only thing was people were able to travel on the subways underground and got there. But I was ordained that day, and we had to leave to go to my church assignment. I was assigned to a church in southern Ohio, near the Kentucky border. Now, Robbins, Ohio was not a city. It was not a town. It was a rural village. No sidewalks, no, just dirt roads. Cow pasture not far from the house. Small church, and the rectory by the house had no inside plumbing. And the only heat was a pot-belly stove in the front room there. We froze. It was a winter every time I looked at the thermometer. If it was 0, it was still warm. It was below all the time and so forth. you had to go to bed with your clothes on. So anyway, I was there for almost 2 years. And then afterwards, my brother-in-law, Alexander Warnicki, was at St. Vladimir Seminary saying, Father Paul, come out. He says, we're getting new professors from Europe coming in. Father Pawlowski, Father Shmemian, Father Mylov, Svatorsky, so on and so on. He said, come and do some graduate work here. So he was trying to get a parish here on the East Coast. So I made a request, and after some duration, I was assigned to St. Vladimir's Parish in Trenton, New Jersey. I came here. I didn't have any cars, of course. By the way, serving in Ohio, I had to take care of 3 parishes, by the way. 3 small little parishes. They were all 5 or 10 miles apart and so forth. And each Sunday, somebody had to take me because I had no automobile. I had to travel to this parish and so forth. And honorarium for serving there was $100 a month. And the hardest part was Holy Week and Easter. On Holy Friday, I had to have a service at each church, starting in the afternoon, and each one here, and then from there you go to the next church and there, sir. The same thing happened with Easter. By the time all these services were done, I was worn out, exhausted, and so forth. But I endured somehow. Then finally, of course, when I received my assignment to come to Trenton, New Jersey, Father Phillips, my colleague from the seminary, studied together. He was a priest in Canonsburg, Pennsylvania, and I was driven there, and he drove us here. There was Ascension Day, we served in his church, and the next day, Friday, we came here to Trenton, traveled about 8 hours from Pittsburgh to here. And the ladies made a dinner for us. There was shrimp dinner that Friday, so forth. And the church at that time and the parish was very small. Our church is small now, but it was half the size it is now. And very poor in condition, shabby. There was no iconography, no bare walls, small iconostasis. Everything was kind of handmade, people, simple food, made with benches and so forth. And I thought to myself, there's very few people in church. I thought, what's going to happen here? But as time went on, of course, what happened is, this was after World War II, immigrants from Europe, suffering from the communist regime, the Nazis, the Germans, so forth, they all were lost in Europe, and they had to be helped to get out. World Church World Service helped these people to come to the United States, scattered them all over where they could, especially farms or hospitals where they could do menial work and so forth. As people came here to this area, they were looking for a church. They found our church here, and then of course they all needed help. These were immigrants, you see. Didn't know the language, didn't have any money, so were poor, so they needed housing, they needed work, they needed all kind of help and so forth. So what did it come? They were coming to me, somebody told them, go see Father Paul. And I became an employment agency because I had to be taking these people to factories to get employment for them. And at first, these factories says, well, he doesn't understand English. How can he work here? I said, just tell him what to do, he'll do it. So it got to be that these fellows were such good workers that they were asking for more, so I didn't have enough to go around anyway. But it was a long time occupation, helping these people with this, with hospitals. When they got sick, you go to the hospital, ask them, this man can't afford it. And I remember when they would tear up the bills you see in front of the cashier, says, we can't so on. Anyway, these people became parishioners. And the church, and they were very good religious people. And the church had to be expanded, it was too small. So we had to expand the church, and we expanded the church lengthwise. A few years later, we had to expand the church on the sides. There was 2 wings, as they say. And the church began to grow, and then we had to, of course, build a new iconostasis, new altars, and of course we found a iconographer at that time who was well known by the name of Pimen Safronov. Safronov was brought here to this country by Father Alexander Warnecki, who was told that he wanted to have his church done also what I could. And he had, you see today, you come into this country illegally very easily by crossing the Mexican border, you see, with dope and everything else from diseases. But the good people had a hard time getting into this country legally. So Father Warnecki had to have his congressman in New York State pass a bill to have Mr. P.F. Safronov come to this country to be the iconographer in the church. So Syracuse St. Peter Paul Church was the first church done by Safronov, and my church here in Trenton, Jersey was the second one. It took 2 years to do the iconography in our church from top to bottom. And we did the iconostasis, so forth, and all the woodwork was done by Mr. Grace and so forth. So what you see in our church today was done over many years. Now, we didn't have money and so forth. All the time when we were rebuilding the church, expanding, whatever it is, everything was done by going to the bank and borrowing money at 5% in those days. As time went on, oh, by the way, when I came to Trenton, this parish, there was no money. There was $500 in the bank, that's all. And I thought, oh my. And $100 a month was the salary. And at times we had to borrow money to eat, get food on the table and so forth, clothes for the children. But anyway, we survived. We survived. The parish began to grow and so forth. And as you saw, things developed. And I stayed on. I served, of course, as a dedicated priest. I loved this church, this parish, because so many years my heart was in and so forth. And as time went on, I began to think, what's going to happen in the future? How can we preserve the parish so that it will not go disappear? So I thought, I hope we'll get a good priest who will come in, will be dedicated to this church. And also we needed the finances to secure the church financially, so forth. So I started what they call the endowment fund. People who were old, who had no children or families, relatives to leave anything to, they came to me and asked what to do, Father. And I said, please leave the monies to the church, we need it badly. And one after the other, see, these people left all of their savings, their house to the church and so on. So we built this endowment fund, which has come to help us, financially. From time to time we had major and so forth, and so on. Anyway, thank God for that. And of course, finally, I must say that we are blessed to receive a good pastor priest, Father Vladimir Tchaikovsky. The Tchaikovsky family, they're all, father, mother, his brothers, sisters, everybody, all good, godly people, wonderful, warm hearts, hospital, welfare, so forth. And Father treats me so wonderfully, helpful, so forth, treats me. And so I look forward all the time. Thank God I can still serve yet, see? And I look forward to joining Father Vladimir at the altar, so forth, and celebrating the divine services with him. That means so much to me, so much. Well, this is probably my story I tell you, so forth. And many people don't like long speeches, so forth. And I can understand that. I am reminded of the time when my friend, priest, who studied with me at the seminary, was retiring a few months before I did. I was invited there, And after the Divine Liturgy, there was a big banquet hall there. We went there. There were many speeches, long speeches. One priest especially, his name was also Paul, this priest, Father Paul. He gave a long talk. Then all of a sudden, somebody in the back of the hall got up and said, with his, Father Paul, that's enough, stop. That's enough, just sit down. That was rude. Anyway, it cut the program down. So, taking that hint, of course, I must say also, Father Paul, sit down. So anyway, I would say that's what I can retain and remember so forth. I don't have a computer, I have to keep things in my head, so forth. So, I would say, I'll sing this little song, you hear it many times. This is my story, this is my song, praising the Lord Jesus all the day long. Amen.
Chanta, mama. Chanta.
Got me.
Yes, you
What a memory. In many ways. I think we are now ready for the open mic. So, anyone who would like to say a few words is welcome to do so. Is there any order? Do we do?
No, whoever wants to come up. It's not over yet. Everybody stay seated. Stay seated. It's not over. Anybody who would like to come up and share a memory or anything. Oh, Paul Danko. Who we first? Paul Danko grew up in this parish.
You want to take first?
This was great.
Well, come on up. Sure, there's no order, there's no, just Paul Danko, many of you know, grew up in this parish, so. All right, Paul, go, take it away.
I felt a little obligated to be up here today because my brother and sister could not make it from New Mexico and California, so I'm representing the Denko and Sadowski family. When the slideshow was going on, just to give you a quick little history. Thank you. The black and white photos that came up there, my grandparents from both sides of the family were in there. They were some of the original founders of this church. And I can show you pictures when the church was first built. There was literally nothing around it, zero. It was all by itself on a vacant lot. Father Paul was always an inspiration to me. I had my times of falling away from the church, but I was drawn back. Memories of him are incredible. When I was an altar boy, I'm going to give you one little hint about him. Before we had air conditioning, the robes, I would be drenched on a summer day. I'm soaked on the inside. That man does not sweat. I have no idea. He's got an internal cooling system. It was very interesting. But he baptized both of my children, and going back, he baptized me. And to give you a little idea about when he was talking about the iconographer, Pimen Citronov, he lived with, he lived with my grandparents, and my grandmother fed him a very strict diet. He would only work at night. Used many dozens of eggs for the egg whites. That's what sealed everything back then, after the pigment was gone. I wish my brother and sister could be here right now. I took a lot of video I have to send back there. There's problems with medical problems in the family. But as far as a lineage back to the original church, I'm part of that lineage, and so is Doris Keys. I get kind of lost for words because I spent a lot of time with Father in the sanctuary. I was an altar boy. I stayed on for quite a while. And whenever he would come, I built a new house in New Jersey 38 years ago. And I had never seen a full house blessing, an original house blessing. And he goes to each room and he literally engraves the sign of the cross around the house. But, and I'm not trying to be funny, we would sit down and talk after the house blessing, and next thing you know, a couple of hours would go by. He knows everything about everything. He's a very learned man. He is so fascinating to talk to. So I learned a bit about him. We had many great discussions. He will always be cherished in my heart and my family's heart. And my mom was choir director here for many years. And so many of the services, because of the time and the frequency of them, she and Father would be the only two in church. She would be the choir and he would run the service. So they knew each other intimately. My mom just died 4 years ago at 99 years old. So she was a few years older than Father, if she was still around. But they spent a lot of time together. My family devoted their lives to this church. My mother, I don't think, missed a service her entire life. We lived 2 blocks from here on Liberty Street. And I don't care if there was a foot of snow on the ground, she would trudge on over here because she would never miss. So this is a part of me that'll never ever go away. He's a wonderful man, and he gave me a church conscience. It made me always, I'm going to quick little confession. Before there were pews, there were metal chairs in the church. And when I was real small, I had too much energy. I would crawl under the chair. Father, I was reminded that by some people that I long forgot about, but I thought it was pretty good. So God bless you, Father. God grant you many years. You've done wonders for me and kept me coming back to this church. Thank you.
Just one little comment about what Paul said here about the air conditioning. Before we had air conditioning, the church was always so hot in July, it was unbearable. But unfortunately, one July we had a wedding. It must have been 100 degrees. We had a wedding. And the groom faded the church and so forth. The mother of the groom came to me, turned the air conditioner on. And I says, we don't have any. He said, oh, what the hell goes on here? So she left. But that was what used to be in our church at that time. Hot. And then another thing about the heat of summer. I went to, on a Monday, to a paint store here in Trenton, on Broad Street. And the man in the manager's store was talking about the heat of the day. And I said, yes, how hot? And he said, you know, he was Roman Catholic. He said, I was in church yesterday. He says, boy, we had a terrible service. I said, what? He said, it was so long. He says, the priest kept us going for a long, long time. And the priest at the end says, I want you to know what hell is going to be like.
Okay, somebody else. I know Anatoly told me he wants to come up, so he'll be next.
Much praise and thanks was given today to Father Paul for all that he did and for all he stands for. I will be very short. I want to thank him for what he not did. When I joined the family 46 years ago as a semi-good Protestant, he took me into the family, allowed to marry Paula, and then he never ever asked me, do you want to convert and become a Orthodox Christian? And I really, really appreciate that. I am thankful for Father Paul forever that he did not push, did not press me. I had to find my own way, and I did. It took a few years, but I did, and I am so grateful that my father-in-law had the good sense not to push. And I'm very happy today to be an Orthodox Christian. Thank you, Father.
I think a lot of you know. Oh, did this go off? Hello?
Yeah, I turned it off.
You turned it off?
Can't hear.
How do you turn it on?
Switch.
Did you turn it on? We heard you. We heard you.
Battery died? Yeah.
My name is Anatol Forostenko, and it's both an honor and a pleasure to have this opportunity to wish Father Paul 100 years. Father Paul, 73 years ago, in the summer of 1949, my parents, my grandparents, my younger sister Vera, came to this country from DP camps. None of us spoke English, but it was a lot easier for me and my sister. But it was quite difficult for my grandparents and for my parents. They did not speak English. They were not familiar with the traditions, the customs, the new society. As I said, we endured World War II, most of it in camps, and then in 1949, we were fortunate because we had relatives here in New Jersey who sponsored us and brought us to America. We came to your parish, as I said, in the summer of 1949. At that time, Father Paul, you were 27 years old. But even at that time, you commanded a lot of respect. And my parents came to you, both my parents and my grandparents, because again, they were buffered in this new society. It was not easy for them. But you, as our parish priest, took it upon yourself to spend endless hours accommodating whatever needs that they have. Oftentimes, as you said, you served as an employment agency, interpreter, translator, in some cases, a judge, advocate, whatever it took, you were there. As the remaining member of that family, I want to take this opportunity to thank you. You made it very, very easy to love you, to respect you. And you have been an example, not only for my sister and me, but for my son, my niece, whom you baptized. Unfortunately, they're in Pittsburgh. They were unable to come today. But they send you their respect, their congratulations. And also, I want to tell you that an American astronaut who served as a godfather for my son, Alexander, you baptized him here. The astronaut, General Tom Stafford, wishes you a happy 100th birthday. May God continue to grant you continued good health so that you remain among us for many years to come. And thank you for everything.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anybody else? Come up, say a few words, sing a song. No. Well, I have something to say, so I don't want to preempt anybody else who might want to come up and speak. But since nobody is coming up, I'll speak now on behalf of the family. I have to write everything down. I don't have the memory my dad has. Wish I did.
Yeah.
So, I do want to thank Nina Lauschel and Chris Kazmer and their team. I mean, I provided, well, Father Paul helped me provide the content for the booklet that they got their wonderful layout designer, put it all together and print it, and it's a beautiful job. Okay, wow, Dad, you made it. Of course, if you're 100, that makes me 39? I know, it's an old joke, sorry. Dad, everyone's extolling your life's work as a pastor, a teacher, a trustee. I salute you today as my wonderful father. You always went many extra miles for me and for Paula and our beloved Kira. You made sure we got the best schooling, the best medical and dental care, delicious food, music lessons. And you listeners might think that's not such a big deal, but it was all done on a very meager budget. Because Dad, you didn't get much in the way of a salary, and you consistently turned down raises because you felt the parish didn't have a lot to spare. As you said, the parish parishioners weren't wealthy, and you wanted the funds to be available for improvements to the church facilities. I must salute Mom on this as well. Mom, you worked hard right along with Dad, and you've both been an amazing team. And you know, in spite of all these budget constraints, I never felt deprived. You made me feel that my life was rich and very special. Indeed, we had a ton of fun. Dad, you love nature and appreciate very deeply the beauty of God's creation. And so you took us to see it. Niagara Falls, the Thousand Islands, Letchworth State Park, to name a few. We traveled with cousins, aunts, uncles, a grandmother, all packed into one big sedan. There were no seat belts. The front seat was not divided like today. It was one continuous seat like the back seat. You could fit a lot of people in there. Well, with kids and adults' laps. I recall on one of those trips when we got to the Canadian border, the agent looked in the car and asked, "Are all these kids yours?" You love learning. You're still filling your brain with more information every day. For example, how things are made. We watched the Smithsonian Channel and the History Channel together. That's a long time interest of yours. And so we went on a tour of the Kodak factory and a chocolate factory, to name a few. In those days, you could go through the factory, and we got pretty close to the employees and the food at their job, and the people at their jobs. There were far fewer public health and safety regulations in those days, just like the cars, I guess. You love art and music and learning about other cultures around the world. We couldn't afford to travel overseas, but you took us to the World's Fair. And we went in the bitter cold to New York and stood in line a long time to see the Mona Lisa and the Pietà, which were on loan at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. It's a vivid memory still. I want to say that you're not some mythical type of perfect person. You're a human being. Humans stumble and fall. But you show the way to pick oneself up and march forward with hope in God and His grace. You live every day with hope in the Lord, with love for our Savior and His holy church, and with gratitude. This I see in your daily prayer life, morning and evening without fail. You attend virtually every church service, putting able-bodied people to shame, although that's not your intent. This brings me to my final point about your soul. We see that your body is not in great shape. You are in pain pretty much every day, all day. If you try to straighten up, the pain is really unbearable. Your soul, though, stands in sharp contrast. It is stronger than ever. It is vibrant, getting better every day. You are a wonderful example to me, and I hope to others, that with lots of attention to spiritual nurturing and nourishment, daily prayer, regular church worship, living with hope and gratitude, reflecting always on God's grace and bounties. With all of this, the soul goes the opposite direction of our declining physical selves. And that's a wondrous thing that I see in you. I cannot thank you enough for your love, your enrichment of my life in countless ways, for all you have done for me. And I cannot thank God enough for making you my dad. I love you and congratulate you on this wondrous milestone. Anybody else? Surely somebody else has something to say.
Let me just make a note.
You want to say something? Let me get the microphone, Dad.
Just a quick remark, funny remark. Anatole Fonseca spoke about his parents and grandparents coming to America after World War II as displaced persons. But his grandfather, Fyodor, one evening on Saturday, came to Vesper service and I had to drive him back home because he had to walk a long distance. They began to tell me about his life. And they said, vodka veniasa basla. Vodka saved me. I said, what do you mean? So, well, he was working in a coal mine in western Pennsylvania. I'm familiar with mines because my father was also a coal miner. To go down to the pits of the ground, way down deep, you had these shafts, big white shafts that you stand on, and you went down deep into the ground. So the first thing early in the morning, all the workers had to go down, first down into the mines. And then in the afternoon, they were bringing up the coal in the mines. So he says, this one time he was at a wedding. He drank a little bit too much. So as a result, he got up late that morning, got the mine at the same time, the right time. So he came in and he tried to go down, and he says, no, you can't go down, it's too late. There was so he was upset very much, and he said he had to go home. That day he learned there was a gas explosion in the mine. Many people were killed. He was saved. After that, he went back home to Europe, where he came back later on the second time. But that's the little story, interesting story that Dan gave to me.
Okay, anybody else? Paulie, you want to say something?
I had written a little short speech and I had it on my laptop and left it here last night and was going to review it. So it doesn't matter because I want to first of all greet Vladika, clergy, Montesquieu who are here. Thank you all for coming. I thought if you listened to the Archbishop's sermon today, it was very, very true, very apropos, and it was full of really a lot about the life of a priest and his Matushka and children and family. And we were, as Nina just said, we lived a life where my father had to be split. He was devoted, he was a hands-on priest with the parish, and he loved it, and he was very hands-on with us as well. All right, we did not feel there were few emergencies where parishioners or something trumped whatever we were planning. Sometimes we had to adjust, but you know what? It was okay. You learn a lot from that growing up. You become a stronger, more independent person. I mean, many times I had to walk myself to the doctor a couple blocks away with a skin deep, something cut in my knee or something, you know. It was just, you just did it. You learned to do it. Because my father was occupied with something else. So I thank God for that opportunity. I thank my father for a tremendous amount of devotion to us and instilling the learning, the love of learning, as Nina just mentioned. I was going to say that also. He really wanted us to learn and get educated, and we did. And he was a little bit progressive, having 3 daughters. He told us, you could become anything you want. He didn't limit what our careers would be after school. So I thought, okay, that's good. I become a mathematician, which I did. Nina became a lawyer. And that was not too well known in those days with women. We were being educated, but so he's kind of let us be independent that way and said, there's nothing that you can't do.
And Kira was in the financial world.
Kira was in the financial world, yes. So, and the other thing I want to, that really is, Father Chad mentioned this, it's very inspirational. My father's love for the liturgical services is unbound. He always, to this day, when we're driving him home from a service, remarks about the beauty of the liturgical calendar, the beauty of the hymns and the theology in the hymns, and how everything just all comes together and how important it is. And so I thank my father for that. It really is a true, heartfelt love of his, and an important one in his service. The last thing I'm going to say is his memory. Anybody who wants to know anything about anybody here in the church, in the cemetery, you go to Father Paul. He knows the children, the parents, the grandparents, the cousins, the nephews. He knows them all. He remembers them. I can't remember, 10 years ago. I'm sorry, but so it is remarkable, his memory, and I don't know how he does it. I don't know. But anyway, I thank you, Dad, for all of your love and guidance that you have provided for my family. God bless you, and God grant you many years.
Have we inspired any others?
Awesome, we got the young people up here.
So, on behalf of the Altar Boys, I just want to say it's an honor to serve with you, Father Paul. I want to thank you for your mentorship, and I think your memory is really amazing. There's a lot of history between 1922 and that's amazing. But I just wanted to wish you a happy birthday. I want to see a bicentennial anniversary when I'm about 100.
First off, I'd like to say happy birthday, Father, and I'm very grateful for the opportunities I've had to serve with you. Every time you come back, you bring a smile to my face, because I know that I get to serve with you one more time. Happy birthday. I'd also like to say happy birthday, Father. And they cover just about everything, but yeah, I just pray that there will be many more opportunities for us all to get to serve with you, and may God grant you many years.
Annie's coming.
One more. Right. Hey, there's no limit. Whoever.
We welcome you. We welcome you.
And you know, before I just have to say goodbye.
Yes.
You want to say happy birthday to great grandpapa?
Oh, it's okay. It's always the first time.
I'm not very good at this, but I couldn't let this go by because Father Paul brought back a lot of good memories because he came and I was 14. So I think I'm the oldest one here now. If we go back to the... She's, yeah, besides, but we don't count that. Yeah. Anyway, when Father came here, Paul was just a baby. And I was their babysitter. And that's what brought back memories when he talked about how hard times were. Because Monteshka took a job while Father taught the one day. And I remember it was Thursday because the stores were open late on Thursdays in downtown Trenton. And I would take a bus and meet Monteshka because she had the later hours. She worked like 4 to 9 until they were closed. And so I would take a bus into town. She took a bus. We met on the corner of where the store was. I took the baby home with me. She went to work. And then Father, when he was done teaching, he would come to my house and pick up the baby. So I got to know them personally for now it's like 73 years. So I just am blessed to be here to be able to wish you a happy, happy birthday.
There's always room for more. No.
1 minute.
Mother Paul. Debbie's going to speak.
We heard those 3 boys speak up. 3 brothers, Ortiz boys.
2 brothers and the Logan boy.
2 brothers and just a minute, just a minute. There are 3 Ortiz boys. They're all altar servers. One is a driver, helper to the bishop. Their names are Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And their father is John. So yeah, the 4 evangelists. Thank you. They're good people. And I just want to say that I said earlier, you know, this parish started out as a Russian parish, so forth. And this time when I first came here, they had a parish meeting, and some man got up and he says, Father Paul, we have to use English here because the children don't understand this church belonging. But another man got up and he said, no, Jesus only spoke Russian. Anyway, the parish became ecumenical. We have people from all corners of the earth. You name them, they're all here, except Asians. We don't have Asians. Okay? But the Filipinos be called Asians for doctrine. All right, they're Asians. Okay, so we have everybody. So, you see, we changed. Not in a revolutionary, but an evolutionary way. So, of course, took this time. And the Holy Spirit worked with us, and of course with the good work of Father Mears, the parish has flourished, And we have a parish full of love. Everybody loves one another and respects each other. Thank God.
Okay, Margie, come on up.
Father Paul, just like my sister Annie, we have many, many good memories. You married me 62 years ago, christened my children, and I will never forget. You've always been so wonderful. And when you came to the doctor's office, if you remember, every time you were leaving, you would sing to me,
Margie, you're always thinking of me, Margie.
But I just want to wish you a very happy birthday. And my husband Bill also, unfortunately, he couldn't be here today because he's having a family reunion that he hasn't seen in a few years. So he also sends his regards. Thank you.
Wes, you told me you'd like to come up.
West from Everyfield, the leader of the AHF people.
Father Paul, first happy birthday. I believe on your hold it up by your close. Can you hear it?
No, you have to hold it close.
Okay. That's off. To me, it's very loud when I speak.
Green? A microphone.
Hello? First happy birthday, Father. I believe it was in your... It's not working. We had... I'm talking loud. I believe it was on your 50th birthday. I wrote you a card. As you baptize our children. You can't hear me? It's, no, something's wrong. Hold it. Yeah. Hold close. Hello? It's dying. Yeah. Speak loud. Maybe I will go.
Yeah, just go talk.
Can you hear me?
He'll get you the
We have three
Just
more.
wait a second.
Is the video on?
Video is right here. No.
Oh, batteries.
Okay, so it's better mic.
There we go. There we go.
So it means few more minutes and we have the Vesper.
Okay. Hello? Can you hear me now? Okay. You can hear me now. Right, Father? Okay. On behalf of my family, happy birthday. I believe it was on your 50th service anniversary. I wrote you a card. I want you to live longer to wed my children. And here you are, almost there. My daughter is 25. But thank you so much for everything, Father. Every Sunday I come to church. If I don't hear your voice, I always worry. Where is Father? My mom always asks about you. She cannot speak English, but she always asks about you. Samson supposed to be here, but he couldn't make it, and he said happy birthday. Thank you for everything, Father Paul. I cannot say much.
And one more, Sumarushka. You want to say yours?
I knew you as Uncle Paul. But
I used to come here in summers. My mother is Mary Shaffer, Matushka Mary's sister. And I just want to say 2 memories I have of you, clear memories. My own father had some disabilities after the war that prevented some relationship at times with him. When I came here, Father Paul, you would take us to the shore. And I remember clearly you somehow, I was much smaller, you were much stronger, throwing me up into the waves and playing with me. And in that sense, you supplied some of that fatherhood to me, and I appreciate that. And another time, I remember going to confession to you when I was having a difficult time, and you were so helpful. It's funny, I should go to a family member, my Uncle Paul, but at that time, he was Father Paul also. And what I remember most is not so much what I said or what you said, but looking at your face after that confession and seeing total acceptance, total concern, total love. And again, it just expresses another dimension of your fatherhood, your spiritual fatherhood. So you gave me, at 2 times at least, that are really etched in my memory, but many other times, this physical and spiritual fatherhood. And I want to thank you for that on your 100th birthday. And Aunt Mary, and the story I heard was also, maybe people don't know this, my mother told me that when you saw Mary Oblatilov, you said she's more beautiful than Elizabeth Taylor. And I think she remains that way to you. And Aunt Mary, you were, when I was going to become a clergy wife, I knew I could never match you in cooking, certainly cooking, hospitality and grace. And so I thank you for being mother and father. Thank you.
Okay, so I think, it's always this beginning and always the end. But only what I want to say, when we was thinking to make this celebration and we thought, oh, who can lead this? So then the first word was Father Dan Squire. He is good with that. He always went to the program. He can add some jokes, something. So Father Dan, we very appreciate that you can hold this. You was very well. Thank you and many, many years. Okay, so now we can pray and finish, yeah.
Thanks be, O Christ our God, that satisfy us with earthly blessings. Deprive us not of thy heavenly kingdom, but as thou camest in the midst of thy disciples of faith and faith and peace, so come to us and save us. Glory to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, now and ever, and unto ages of ages. Amen. Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy. Master, bless.
God is with us through his grace and bounties and love for mankind, and we bless his holy name always, now and ever, and unto ages of ages.
Amen. He's full that he
Many years to all of you. Father Paul, again, congratulations, best wishes, good health in many years. Matushka, the same for you. And to all of you, thank you for coming to celebrate this incredible team of priests and Matushka, mother and father, grandfather and grandmother that we honor today. God bless you all. Sprazniku.